Welcome to the Know Your Ship podcast, presented by eHub. I'm your host, Frank Dolce. Welcome back to the Know Your Ship podcast. Man, I could not be more excited about our special guest today. Very special.
Very special.
In many ways. He has an incredible backstory, and he has another interesting feature. I'll let you talk about that. But this is Ryan.
What's the feature? I got a big nose, or
no? That is a feature, but that's not the feature we're talking about. No, we're talking about your twin. We're going to talk about your twin because you're able to like double your business process and everything that you do because you have another guy sitting right next to you. But we'll talk about that a little bit. But this is Ryan Gardner of Bucked Up, and I think people probably know. I mean, I know a little bit about the Bucked Up brand and how it's exploded, but we want to dive into the person a little bit more before we talk about the brand.
All right, cool.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Does that work? You have a great backstory and background. I know you grew up on a farm.
Yep, in Clearfield, Utah.
Yeah, so. and a big farm. And my mother grew up on a farm. And so
where?
In southern Colorado, Lamar,
nice.
Colorado.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we would go back there in the summers to visit my grandparents and work on the farm.
Yeah.
And there's not work. You don't learn how to work until
you've been on a farm.
Until you've worked on a farm.
And you realize that that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life.
But you say that, but then I think, man, I'd really like to be back on a farm. Sometimes I think I want to be back on a farm.
For sure. And you like to see stuff get done, manual labor. There's something to it. And I love doing, even today, I still mow the lawn and everything else because I love seeing work being done. So,
and when you complete it, like there's a significant satisfaction when you see what you've done. You're able to stand back and say, look, what I did. Yeah. It just feels good. So that had to have a significant impact on how you arrived here today.
Absolutely. And, I have to hand it to my dad. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. But, being on a farm, you're taught to work really hard. And there's something to it. And especially nowadays, just with people that we work with nowadays, I mean, really, we want people that work hard and we want to work smart too. So the being on the farm teaches you that, hey, you're willing to put in some time and you're willing to work hard to get what you want.
Yeah. And you're one of how many kids in your family?
There's 8 kids in our family. I do have an identical twin brother that I run Bucked Up with.
Yes.
And, it's almost like having 2 CEOs. So there's a little bit of a unfair advantage at Bucked Up is that there's 2 of us.
Are you just being kind about Jeff? Or is he?
It's a love-hate relationship. No, just kidding.
Are you really the brains behind the operation and he's just kind of your twin?
No, we're twins. Like, honestly, we're kind of like the yin and yang. We actually think very similar to each other. We think a lot alike. Like, we can be in a meeting and we look at each other and we know exactly what each other are thinking, and it's great. I've had a twin brother, to be able to work alongside with, and total trust, total loyalty. We can throw fists and be best friends 5 minutes later. So
I was going to ask you about that. Is it a competitive atmosphere between you two, or is it more like you're just aligned? And
no, we were fighting to get out of the womb. Like it was. We've been very, very competitive. It's almost like we're mirror twins. We're the same in almost every single way, like even with athletics and sports. So we was very, very competitive. And I don't usually tell this, but I actually got sent to Alaska my 10th to 11th grade summer because we were fighting every day 4 to 5 times. And my parents were like, we're just going to get rid of the black sheep. I guess I was the black sheep. I don't know. I got sent to Alaska for 3 months working up in Alaska. It was awesome. I wouldn't have changed the experience, but that's the only time we've been apart other than our missions.
And your marriages.
And our marriages, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we don't share everything.
Okay.
Well, no, just kidding.
So you got sent away.
Yeah.
Jeff stayed on the farm.
On the farm in Clearfield. Yep.
Okay, what do you want to dive into Alaska a little bit? Like, what were you, was this a camp? What were you doing up there?
We actually had some friends that were local friends that ended up moving up to Eagle River, Alaska. And they just thought that Jeff and I needed a break, and they were right. And we took a break, and, we still fought almost every day. But, like you say, friends, I mean, we become friends 5 minutes later. In fact, we ended up going on missions when we turned 19. And this was back when you went on missions when you're 19. And I specifically remember, one of my companions got upset at me at like 9 a.m. in the morning, right? And they held it against me all day. And I was so shocked. I'm like, wait a sec. You're still mad at what happened? This is 5 o'clock at night. You're still mad at what happened at 9 a.m.? It was just a shock to me because I just didn't, that's not how it was. I was like, hey, we just get it done and over with, and then we're fine. But, it's just different not dealing with an identical twin. But, being on a mission, you're with somebody your whole time, and that's how it was growing up.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you wanted to get off the farm. Is that accurate? You grew up on a farm, and you were kind of like, I'm ready to move.
When we went on our missions, it was almost like a 2-year break for us, right? So my dad was very stern with us, held us under, a thumb. He was very strict. Some people could call it abuse, but, looking back, I don't know that I would have changed it because it's what made us who we are today. You know what I mean? So
I think that's really interesting when people have stern parents. And I know it goes both ways, but I see a lot of very successful people come out of a highly disciplined atmosphere.
Yeah.
And is that something that you have now taken into your parenting?
I realized there's different ways to do it. And through some counseling, I figured out that, hey, look, love has a lot to do with it. And it's not always about being super strict and super, super disciplined,
Yeah.
I mean, I do believe that it was great with responsibility, even on the farm when you're feeding animals and chickens. I mean, I could tell you a story, but it might be a little crazy, but Jeff forgot to feed the chickens for about 7-8 days. We had 60 chickens laying about 50 eggs a day. And we would actually take those eggs and we would sell them to all the neighbors. So we would go door to door, sell, eggs, corn, tomatoes. That's what we did. And that's how we bought our school clothes during the summer. Well, Jeff forgot to feed the chickens for about 8 days. My dad went into the chicken coop and it was a bloodbath. I mean, chickens were eating each other. They were eating their own eggs, everything. He comes in and says, whose turn was it to feed the chickens? And immediately I pointed to Jeff and I said, I've been feeding the horses and the cows. I've been feeding. And so Jeff got his butt kicked all the way out to the chicken coop. Well, one of those, and he had cowboy boots on, one of those, he decided to try and block one of the kicks, snapped his arm like that.
Oh, no. Yeah.
They take him to the hospital and the doctor's like, what happened? And he's like, he forgot to feed the chickens. When you put the cast on, make sure you pull it back far enough so he can still carry the 5-gallon bucket. That could only happen back then.
I love it.
Today, he would have been in prison.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we were on farm. It was farm life. That's what farm boys do,
Absolutely.
So it taught us responsibility for sure.
Yeah. Don't forget to, you could use that as one of your, you could put that up on the wall in your office. Don't forget to feed the chickens. That could be a cultural thing for Bucked Up.
Yeah.
So that had to set some sort of tone for you. I know there were lots of difficulties in that, but that certainly set a tone for how you now managed the rest of your life to get to the point where you are today.
Yeah, and for sure. And then after we served our missions, we ended up going to school down at UVU. It was called UVSC at the time. But we realized, hey, we don't always want to be on a farm. And I had some return mission companions that were really good friends of mine. And they said, hey, Ryan, you really need to come to work here on this sales floor. And on that sales floor, they were actually calling on leads. They would put leads right on our desk. And we would call and sell coaching and mentoring, $5,000 to $20,000 packages, like in an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then what we would do is they would get, help on one-on-one coaching and mentoring. And I realized the guy who's making all the money is the guy producing the lead. And so when the next time a lead provider came in, I asked him for a job and got a job learning how to drive traffic online and producing leads for other sales floors.
Gotcha. Well, that leads directly into what you ended up doing previous to Bucked Up. But let me ask you one last question before we move on to that. So if you look back on your experience on the farm, I'm not sure you ever thought, well, I'm gonna be a social media internet entrepreneur or anything like that. But there were certainly lessons that you learned on the farm.
Oh, for sure.
Growing up. What are some of those lessons? How have you incorporated those into your life? And were there any role models in that time? Your parents or your brother?
My parents were definitely instrumental in doing this. So just to give a little bit of history is when we were on the farm, my dad was a big farmer in Utah, owned a lot of land, and they were farming a lot of land. And a business partner ended up kind of snaking my dad out of a lot of money. This is when we're young. We had our barn burned down. It was crazy. We were in California, barn burned down. Anyway, so my dad had this bad experience with a business partner, and they were running this farm business together. And it helped me realize, hey, who you go in business with is definitely important. And during that time, my mom ended up starting to work when we were about 16 years old. She went to work for a jewelry company. And she used to card earrings, and they would paint the earrings, and they had a paint booth, and they would paint these earrings, and she would be the one that was carding all these earrings. And then she got into a sales position at that place, that jewelry place. My parents eventually, long story short, my parents ended up owning the jewelry place, and they had 8 stores along the Wasatch Front, in malls along the Wasatch Front. And I saw firsthand what it was to run their own company. I said, hey, I want to do that. I want to be my own boss. I don't like working for somebody else. I want to work for, I want to learn how to have my own business. And jewelry was just an experience. So when I learned some lessons, I definitely learned the lesson from my parents, more of the entrepreneurial spirit and ideas that come and say, hey, oh, we could do this better. Oh, we could do this and we could do this. And so not only were we working on the farm, but we also had a jewelry business that we were also running later on as well.
Gotcha.
So
fascinating. Well, you said the partner makes a difference. Like you didn't want to go into business with a bad partner. That was critical to you. But then you went into business with Jeff.
Well, Jeff and I have the same type of work ethic. It would be difficult to work with somebody if they didn't have that same type of mentality. I could tell, like even when there's other people in our business that are not really pulling their own weight. And like, even as the CEO of Bucked Up right now, I want to get everybody rowing in the right direction and rowing as hard as possible. They did a study of corporate America and people in the business, and they've described it as a boat that has 10 people in this boat, and 2 people have their oars in rowing really hard in the right direction. 5 just have their oars in the water, and then there's 2 in the back that are drilling holes. And your job as the CEO is to get everybody rowing really hard and in the right direction. And that's really my focus at Bucked Up.
Okay, and that's terrific. As we move into more of your business experience, what is the secret sauce? How do you get everybody rowing in the right direction?
Well, that's a hard thing to do. I mean, I constantly deal with it daily, but there's things that you can set up in your business that hold everybody accountable. And then other people will make sure those other people are accountable and they're rowing and doing the same thing. So like, for instance, we have a bonus structure at Bucked Up that incentivizes everybody to row in the right direction. And when there's someone that's slacking, everybody's on that person. And everybody's like...
Because everybody suffers.
Yeah, because everybody wants the end goal of the bonus. And everybody wants people who are in there that are really rowing hard, that are really pulling their weight. And if they're not pulling their weight, people come and tell me all the time, hey, this guy's got to go. And it's very rare because we're actually hiring the right people. And that's one of the lessons that I've learned is it's better to hire the right person right away than if I had it over, I'd be like, hey, I need to hire somebody with experience that knows what they're doing and can pull their weight. And obviously, if I hire somebody, I want them to times 10 their efforts. You know what I mean? So
well, if you can find people on your team who take accountability and help drive the other people on the team, then that's some of the magic.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you've been able to create that at Bucked Up.
Yeah. And at first we were like, hey, tight ship, run this tight ship. And now it's so big that you can't possibly micromanage everybody, and you have to give a little bit of control up. But you hire the right people to be in charge of those departments. And if you do it right, obviously magic happens. So
absolutely.
Yep.
Well, this is fascinating because I knew you and Jeff way back when,
right,
in the L-Arginine Plus days.
Yes.
And we had a chance to work with you guys a little bit then when you were doing the affiliate marketing stuff.
Yep.
And I think that is a fascinating story. And not just what you were able to do with the product, but I think there's something else in there that I'd like to talk about if you're comfortable talking about some of the maybe mistakes that you may have made,
absolutely.
and what you learned from that and working with partners. So maybe you can just tell us kind of that story a little bit.
Sure. So Jeff and I owned affiliate network. So once I learned how to drive traffic, Jeff and I started an affiliate network called Big Payout, where people would come to us with a product or a service, and we would drive traffic. So they'd come to us and say, hey, how much would it cost to drive traffic to our website? We'd take a look at their website. We'd give them all sorts of advice. We'd be like, hey, you got to do this, 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 and this. So really we were consultants. We were telling them exactly how to do it so that when we drive traffic, it works and it converts, right? We finally got smart and we said, hey, we need to do this on our own. The very next guy that walks in is Dave Schenk.
Oh.
And he's like, hey, I have this product. I'm selling it to your dad right now. He loves it. My dad's like, he said that, you need to go meet with my boys. They'll put you on steroids. And we said, oh, okay, what product is it? And it happened to be an L-Arginine Plus product, right? And with L-Arginine Plus, that product helps reduce high blood pressure. Like it helps support healthy blood pressure, right? And he was roughly doing about $600 or $700 a day. And he came in and we took a look at it. Before he walked out, we owned 50-50. And that was about 2 hours later. And we said to him, hey, just make sure that you have enough product in stock and you fulfill. We'll drive all the traffic. We'll handle the website. So that's essentially what we did is we took over the website. We started driving traffic. And within 4-5 weeks, we were doing about $3,000, $3,500 a day.
Wow.
And he was just making sure that we had the product in stock and that he was fulfilling the product.
Production and fulfillment.
Yep. And then, like the story of what we were talking about, we had a manufacturer come in and say he wants to buy out. He would like to buy us out. Jeff and I were like, nah, we don't want to sell out because we can see the potential of this product and it could be really, really big. And Dave Schenk said, yeah, I want to get out. So he got out and we actually sold 5% at the time. So the person that brought in had controlling interests.
So you sold 5% of your 50%.
That's right.
Dave sold all of his. So now the manufacturer owns 55%.
That's right. He owned the majority of the business. And so what happened is Jeff and I had all these ideas and things that we could do to increase sales. Obviously, he didn't see it that way. And we just said, okay, go ahead and do what you want to do. They hired guys. They were taking money for their marketing department. And we were like, we're marketing guys. Like, why would you need to hire a marketing department? Right. So we had some, anyway, there was a couple conflicts there. Eventually, he ended up buying us out of our position after a few things came to light. He had a CFO that was kind of stealing some of the money out of the business, and it prevented it from growing. Sure. Right. And we weren't into the day-to-day at that point at that time. And so eventually we just said, hey, look, that was your guy. That was your mistake. Buy us out. And this is what it's going to take. And just stroked a check. And there we go. And so we were off of L-arginine. But that was at the time that we started doing deer antler spray. So what happened is we ended up buying a domain name called larginine.com.
Yes.
And Google was rewarding people with exact match domains. So when we bought larginine.com, we quickly jumped to the top, and it was increasing revenue big time because we weren't having to pay. There was also pay-per-click going on that we did a lot of. But Google, 3 or 4 months after we bought larginine.com, they shut off all the pay-per-click, and guess where all the volume came? It went all our way,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? So our profit margins and everything even went up even higher at that point.
This is an interesting. You've mentioned this. I've listened to other podcasts that you've done, and you've mentioned this before. But kind of being in the right place at the right time.
Right.
I think that you may describe that with this L-arginine in a way.
Yep.
And with Bucked Up, as we'll talk about in a way. But I mean, being in the right place at the right time is only part of it.
Look, there's a lot of luck that's involved, but the harder you work, the luckier you get, So, there's opportunities that come your way, and when you're working hard and you're figuring things out, they come your way and you just take advantage of those opportunities.
So tell me about the partner that ended up purchasing 55% of the business, and what lesson that taught you moving forward, and how you manage Bucked Up today.
Well, obviously having control of your own destiny is really crucial and important, right? And even with Bucked Up, we basically bootstrapped it from the very beginning. We've never taken on debt. We've had people come in and say, hey, I would like to invest in your company. And we're like, we're not looking for an investment. We have really good profit. We have good margins. We have good EBITDA. And really, at the end of the day, we're looking for a strategic partner to help us get to the next level. And that's the same with every business that we've ran, is that we're like, hey, we're looking for strategic partners to help us get to the next level. Jeff and I didn't go to school. Like, we're not the sharpest tools in the shed.
I don't know if that's true, but you went to UVU, but that was
go to UVU.
Short term.
Short term. Jeff got married within a year of UVU, so he stopped school. I actually went for 2 years, got an associate's degree, but it wasn't like I was majoring in anything or focused on anything. And I realized school isn't for me. And that's when my buddy asked me to go work on a sales floor. I'm like, hey, let's give this a shot. I don't want to graduate and make 40 grand a year. I want to make 100 grand. At that time, back in the day, I was like 100 grand.
Yes.
So, and that's how that, and then we decided school wasn't for us, and now it's coming down to hiring the right people, and when you bring on money or you bring on investments, we look at it as, hey, what do you bring to the table for us? And thank goodness we've teamed up with some really good people and really good partners. And the best thing about it is they never had leverage on us. And when they put money in, we took it right off the table.
Yeah.
And so that's been the beauty of it, is that, hey, now let's go all out, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that with like this last partners that came in, they were actually a PE firm, and I highly against PE firm. I was highly against it.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we have a little secret. We have a service agreement with a company called Great Point Brands, and they actually help people grow their brands. And the person who's in charge of Great Point Brands at the time is the former CEO of Dr. Pepper. And we did an agreement with him, and eventually we hired him as our COO. So the former CEO of Dr. Pepper is now our COO.
Yeah.
So, and that was huge because he's a huge strategic guy that could help us get more distribution.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, at this point in the company, we're probably jumping ahead.
Yeah, we're jumping a little
a few steps. But at this point in the company, I believe before you hired him, you were doing about 4 million cans a year.
Yep.
Tell me,
they couldn't believe that we were actually selling 4 million cans. We were just hustlers. Like, we were selling, and they're like, wait, how are you doing this? And they were literally laughing. Like, how are you doing this?
That's the energy drink, correct? That's not the pre-workout. Because
pre-workouts had already been established, and everything was doing really well. We started that in 2016. But then in 2020 is when we started really going hard with energy drinks. And in 2020, we sold about 4 million cans.
Okay, 2020, you sell 4 million cans. And then at this point, you're starting to do an agreement
with the service agreement with the PE firm.
Okay, yes. And that leads you to
Gil, who is the COO, who was the former CEO of Dr.
Okay,
Pepper.
now I think this is the interesting part that you're talking about, because strategic partnerships, how critical that is. You were looking for a strategic partner. He landed in your lap in a way.
Yes.
What was the effect on the business of that?
So the very following year, we've sold roughly 20 million cans. Last year, we did over 40 million. This year, we plan on doing 65 to 70 million. It's been huge with the energy drink portion of our business. And obviously, energy drinks have a really good multiples. You know, and energy drinks, even though you're not necessarily making a lot of EBITDA or profit in the company, it still comes down to the revenue that's being done with energy drinks, because as soon as you stop the marketing and everything for pushing that forward, then you start making a lot of money with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that if you hadn't hired Gil or hadn't gotten into this relationship, your energy brand would still be growing?
Yes, but not at the pace that it is. In fact, we didn't even know what, he comes in and says, hey, let me help you build out a distribution network. And we're like, what's that? Like, we had no clue what it was. And we were like, obviously, you know who it is. He can make phone calls and he can get it done. And that's essentially what it is. Now, the most important thing is that when you get distribution is that your drinks sell. It's velocity. And we've done really well at marketing, and that was our forte and our background. And thank goodness that when they do go into stores, they do sell. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, was there any concern about the price tag associated with hiring a guy like?
Oh, of course. Of course. And we were like, this guy wants to come in and he'd be making more than all of us. And we've put blood, sweat, and tears in for 5 or 6 years, and he's going to already come in and do. And we had to take that leap of faith. And now looking back, I wish we would have taken that risk a lot sooner. You know what I mean? And hiring the right guys. I mean, at the end of the day, if you hire the right guys, whatever you pay them, they're probably going to be worth 10 to 20 times what they're getting paid.
I think that's really an interesting part because the culture, having the right people on the bus, everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. What are some of the things that you look for when you're out hiring and you're trying to fill specific roles on your team? Is it aptitude or is it culture fit? What are the things that you're looking for?
It's both, like culture fit and experience, to me, is at this point is what it's going to come down to. We need people that know what they're doing, especially at this stage of the game. Now, at the first, I want somebody that's smart, that's trustworthy, and they're willing to put in the hard work. I'll hire those guys all day. But now at this stage of the game, when you're doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, you got to have the right people if you want to grow your business.
How do you manage people that just don't fit?
Well, we've had a few of those, and we're actually really quick to get rid of those that don't fit. And, even on my mission, I learned to adjust quickly to the environment or the experience of people. And dealing with different people, I just have learned to adjust and adapt. And we like to, like I said, if they're not a fit, we try to go through it pretty fast and say, hey, this is just not working for us.
Yeah.
And hire the right people.
Yeah.
And the right fit.
So before we move on, there's a lot of stuff in there. Before we move on to the next,
we're going all over.
we are, but that's what I love. I love this kind of conversation.
Yeah,
just this kind of free flowing.
Yeah.
Just give us some of the over 30,000 foot view. I mean, you started, on the sales floor from a farm to the sales floor
to L. Arginine. We bought the domain name L. Arginine. We actually read an article in Sports Illustrated that says deer antler spray is banned in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And we had no clue what deer antler spray was. We, of course, go to the GoDaddy, Look up deer antler spray. It was available for $6.99.
You're
We
kidding.
purchased deer antler spray. There was other people selling deer antler spray, but they didn't realize the power of domain names.
Wow.
But through the experience of larginine.com, we realized, wow, this is pretty good. And we immediately ranked for deer antler spray, but we were only selling about 10 to 12 bottles a day because nobody read the articles. Nobody read Sports Illustrated.
But then, was it Ray Lewis?
8 months later, Ray Lewis gets accused of taking deer antler spray for his torn tricep right before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So Super Bowl media week, just like what we had last week.
Yes.
It just happened to be a guy in the audience of one of the reporters holds up a receipt and says, Ray Lewis, we see that you purchased deer antler spray. Is that how you recovered so fast? He's like, I bought it, but I didn't use it. So it was actually perfect.
He didn't inhale.
Right.
Is that how it goes?
He didn't inhale. So it actually worked in our favor. And we sold all of our bottles in one day. And the very next day, GNC calls us and says, how fast can you fulfill 30,000 bottles? And so we produced, the bottles as fast as possible. 3 or 4 weeks later, we were in GNC selling thousands of bottles every week.
Okay, so tell me, why would deer antler spray be illegal or banned?
Well, because they feel like it gives an athlete an edge. So if you can recover faster.
It's like a PED? Or?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a PED, but that same hormone that causes their antlers to grow, that velvet that's on there, it contains a hormone called IGF-1. Now, injectable IGF-1 is illegal because it helps you recover really, really quick. This gives you enough that gives you a kick that helps you recover a little bit faster. So they feel like it gives an athlete an edge. And Ray Lewis came out, VJ Singh, Alabama football team. All these people came out and was like, well, we didn't know it was illegal, but it was for professional athletes.
Gotcha.
But for everybody else, why not recover faster?
I don't know.
And it felt like, they feel like it gives an athlete an edge. So they're like, hey, let's ban it. And at one time it was banned on the WADA list, but then they took it off.
Gotcha. Okay. So everyone in the Tour de France uses it and everything else because they just use everything.
They use everything.
That's right. In fact, I want to see that. I want to see a bucked up sponsored Tour de France team.
Yeah,
I think that would be something.
Bucked up racing.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, so now you've purchased deer antler spray, and that leads into
so we started going to expos. Fitness expos, and we were selling just deer antler spray, and we noticed that everybody around was selling a pre-workout. And we're like, what's a pre-workout? I remember taking a pre-workout at the Fit Expo in Los Angeles. I took it and my face was melting off, and it was that beta alanine. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm allergic to pre-workout. I thought at the time, but beta alanine helps give you that flush or that tingle or that itch, and it helps buffer lactic acid. That's why 99% of pre-workouts have beta alanine in it. But anyway, we were like, everyone's selling a pre-workout. We got to come up with a full line of supplements. We got to come out with protein, multivitamin. Like, let's come up with a full line of product, but let's start off with a pre-workout. And we said, hey, what should we call it? Let's keep along with the deer theme and let's call it Bucked Up. Went to the domain name, GoDaddy, bought the domain name for about $1,500, and we were off to the races. So that's how we started.
I think one part of the story I'd like to hit on is, it sounds like it's been this easy, we just do this and this and this. It's been a lot of hard work. I know that. But one thing that you've talked about in the past, and one thing that I think is really important in your story, is that you and your brother have had this concept of, look, if you can't afford it, you don't buy it.
Right.
We save.
Like I said, it was a
put away,
tight ship for a long time.
Yes.
Tight ship.
But that philosophy also allowed you to do hey, we're going to create a whole line of product.
Right.
Now you have the resource available to do that, and you don't have to go to outside.
That's right.
Investment.
And what we did is, our whole lives and our whole time of doing businesses, we never took money until there was money at the end of the year. If there was money left, that's when we took. And so we never did that before. We never even paid ourselves a salary for the first 2-3 years running Bucked Up. We never paid a salary. And then we've said, hey, now that we're more financially stable. So what happened is, even with Bucked Up, we launched with 1,000 bottles at LA Fit Expo 2016. We sold all 1,000 bottles in 2 days. And we took that money and we rolled it into starting a new flavor plus 1,000 more bottles of each. So that's how we started. We just took the money that we made from the company and we put it all back in to run the company. And that's how we were taught. And, we were taught never go in debt. By this time, we had our houses paid for, our cars paid for. So it's not like we needed a big expense living. We had a couple homes. I mean, we ran that affiliate network and there was 4 of us and we were doing $20 million a year. And we had
all family members.
All family members. 2, a brother-in-law and a younger brother who is our chief sales officer at Bucked Up now, Daniel. So we try to keep it in the family,
sure,
as much as possible. But that's, we were doing really well. And there was actually one time that I went and saw my bishop and he goes, Ryan, can you pay off your house? I'm like, yes, but my financial advisor's telling me not to. And he goes, pay off your house. And it was actually the smartest thing I ever did because it was just so much less pressure on me.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that I owed. And so I paid it off and we were like, man, we could survive off anything because we have rental homes and they were paying us enough that we could buy groceries with for sure. So we didn't even have to make money at that time. And then we started getting into all this other things.
Gotcha. So you've now gotten to a point in Bucked Up. You don't take a salary for a couple of years. I'm assuming you're taking a salary. Did you finally start paying yourself $100,000?
Yeah, 100,000.
Perfect.
And then we're good. So, and that's the thing is I don't like, I've realized that I don't like people to have leverage on me. And when these PE firms come in and like the PE firm comes in and goes, hey, we're going to pay this, but what are you going to do with the money? And we're like, well, we're taking it right off the table. And they're like, well, we have to explain this to our investors. And I'm like, sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
Right.
And so we took it all off. Like they came in and invested into 25% of our business and we took every penny off the table.
How many firms, how many groups did you talk to before you landed on
that? Was the only one.
That was it.
Yeah. Well,
one hit wonder.
Well, we said, we're not interested. And they go, we think we have something that you may be interested in. And when they told us, we were like, actually, this kind of makes sense. If it can help us get to that next level, why not?
Yeah.
We look at it as, hey, they could help us grow this pie to be so much bigger than we could do it on our own.
Yeah.
And so now there's been some good things and there's been some bad things with a PE firm. They also got some board seats and it's a really important that board. The board is actually really, really crucial that we didn't realize before going into this. And so now votes could be, could swing one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And you're like, man, it's really crucial to have the right board, advisory board. So,
did you create the board or was the board created when you started working with
the
the PE
board
firm?
Was created once we brought in the PE firm.
And who has control over putting people on the board?
Well, internally, so the people who so Jeff and I and the other group, this group that came in and invested, we have control over who does. We actually have 7 board members, but they can be swayed one way or the other. So it's really important that you have that great board. And you didn't realize the power of what a board has because if they can approve something and you don't agree with it, you're like, ooh, now sometimes I feel like I don't have the leverage. And that's why I said, I don't know if I'm
comfortable.
Right. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with people having leverage on me.
So what is the lesson there? I mean, there are lots of people out there listening who are maybe in that position of, okay, we want to take some investment. And that's going to
make sure they're a strategic partner.
Strategic
number one,
partner. Absolutely.
That can help you get to the next level. Mm-hmm. And then number 2 is make sure the people that you have on the board are all people who are aligned with your vision and goals.
How difficult is it to do that?
It's very difficult because everybody has their own thing. And then with a PE firm they're looking at their investment, right?
Sure.
So you want to make sure that they align, that they say, hey, I'm not quick. If something comes my way and an opportunity comes my way to, let's say, sell Bucked Up, sure, I'll take a look at it. But I'm not desperate to take that either. You know what I mean? So we just got to make sure that you align with the strategic partners that you bring in.
Yeah, it's great advice.
It's not just about the money. I mean, it's not. Like before, like I said, it's not about the money. It's about, can that person actually help you in your business?
Well, the truth is, Bucked Up probably could have found another partner that was willing to give a little more money.
Sure.
But maybe without Gil in the back. Yeah,
exactly.
In the back.
We might not be where we are today.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Did you
super
take on investment money with eHub?
We haven't. In fact, it's a very interesting question.
Okay.
Because it's eHub is a bootstrapped company, no debt. We've built it over the last 14 years, and we're now in a position of where you were kind of thinking like, well, maybe this is the right time to do some, whatever it is, accelerate growth or take some chips off the table, whatever that is. And the thing that we have kept talking about outside of having this conversation is we need to find a really good strategic partner. That's going to X eHub.
Times are
you got it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this
great.
this
That's
conversation is
funny.
very timely. Very timely. Yeah. So we're very similar. Although now I wish we would have named it something other than eHub because Bucked Up is way cooler. Tell us about the name.
Well,
you were telling us a story and how your mom kind of
our parents, just so you know, they didn't like the name Bucked Up. We couldn't say freak, fetch, flip. We couldn't say any of those F words other than the other F word too.
Yeah.
And when we called it Bucked Up, they're like, "Are you guys serious? You're going to really call this Bucked?" We were like, "It's so catchy." And the first couple years, they said my boys run a supplement company. Now they're like, my boys run Bucked Up, right? So now it rolls right off their tongue.
Yes.
So, and then a couple of the other names like LFG, we were like, hey, this is called Let Fat Go.
Absolutely.
Woke AF, we were like Woke American Fork. My sister let the cat out of the bag on that one. So, they weren't happy with. In fact, we had a big, we just released a pre-workout called Mother Bucker. And my parents were absolutely saying, do not do this. And it got me so nervous that the week before, my mom comes up and says, Ryan, please don't do this. And I said, oh no, we've already got the bottles. We've already got the labels. I went to the content team and we've already developed the whole marketing strategy behind Mother Bucker. And I said, guys, I'm sorry to tell you this. We need to change the way we're going out with this. I want to say things like new pre-workout that's so offensive, we can't even tell you the name. And we blurred everything out. And I was stressing out big time. And then when we launched Mother Bucker, it was the best launch GNC had ever had.
Yeah.
It was our best launch internally with our e-commerce. And my mom, like literally a month before, she's like, hey, Ryan, I got a name that's better than Mother Bucker. I'm like, okay, what do you have? And she goes, let's call it Mother Load. And I'm like, Mom, okay, Mother Load? That's even worse than, please let me stick to the names, Mom, please. It was crazy. But that marketing campaign, I mean, without my mom, I would have never have done where we blurred out all the names like, hey, this pre-workout's so strong, even the name's offensive. That's how we got the idea. Because my mom was there going, don't do this. Please don't do it.
Oh,
and I'm like,
so good.
My mom and dad were worried about what the neighbors were going to say.
Yeah,
let's just say that.
Absolutely.
But I wasn't worried. But
well, I'm going to push for creating a product called Mother Load because I think that's genius.
Okay.
You got to come
I'll give
out
that
with
to my mom, right?
And maybe with like kind of a picture or a silhouette of your mom on it. That's the logo,
Dude,
the Mother Load.
That name is crazy. So anyway.
Well, it's the naming, all of it's very clever.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this. Is there something in the Bucked Up line for everybody? Or is there a specific focus?
Yeah, so that's what we, one of our core values. So our core values are, customer experience. Number 2 is having great quality products that taste great. And then number 3 is we have something for everyone. So, a person will go, hey, Bucked Up isn't strong enough for me. Well, wait till you try Mother Bucker. It's going to knock you on your butt, right? And then we also have things that people are like, hey, I'm really sensitive to caffeine. Mm-hmm. And we have things that are non-stimulant and just designed for pump. So, like if somebody wants to work out late at night, but they don't want any caffeine, we have several products for that. And so we have something for everyone, regardless of where they are on their fitness journey. We have something for someone.
Yeah, I love the stacks.
Yeah, we have
website.
good stacks.
Yeah,
great stacks.
I love that. And as I continue to I just can't stop getting older.
Well, you look in great shape.
Thank you. That's
You
kind
work
of
out hard, I'm
yes,
sure.
well, I think I could use a little of the product, so I'm going to start putting that in my mix. I'll have you put together my list after after the podcast.
For sure. Let's do it.
That would be awesome. Okay, I have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
Just random questions.
Okay, random questions.
Random
Here we go.
questions. Okay, and we're talking about Bucked Up.
This is where I get nervous. No,
Yeah. Yes, you should. You should get nervous. Okay, let me ask you this question first.
Okay.
If Tom Brady was taking Bucked Up, would he still be playing today?
He probably would. And, I'm going to be honest. We got a little inspiration. We actually have LFG because every game he was like, let's go. So that's where we came up with
that
LFG.
Was it?
That's where we
Inspired by? Wow.
Believe it or not, LFG pre-workout was already out and available. And I ended up going to the guy who owned LFG, and I called him and I said, hey, I want the name. And he goes, it's not for sale. And I'm like, everything's for sale. It's just the right price. And he goes, well, what do you want to offer? I said, I'll give you $8,000 plus I'll buy all of your inventory. Cause as I was talking to him, he was selling a couple 100 bottles a month. I said, I'll buy all your inventory. I'll pay you $8,000. He goes, oh, no way. No way. I'll take $16,000. And I said, okay, done. And I paid him $16,000. The very next day, I got a purchase order from GNC for $4 million.
Oh my gosh!
Because I told him, hey, I got the name LFG. Let's freaking go, and we'll blow this up. And GNC was all in.
Wow!
And so we launched LFG at GNC. But like I said, $4 million PO the very next day after I purchased LFG.
Unbelievable.
Yep. So Tom Brady, thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. Are you a weightlifting guy, a cardio guy, or a yoga guy?
What do you do?
I think I know what you are, but then you can tell me. I'm an old school, like a little bit in the gym, pretty regularly in the gym, and then out on the like Rocky, gray sweats,
running upstairs,
running upstairs,
yeah,
breaking, like it's like working on a farm. That's the original way to break a sweat.
I have to admit, I only really go to the gym because I'm in this industry now. Before, we never even went to the gym and we never really worked out, but we played sports like crazy.
Yeah, you guys were basketball guys, right?
Oh, absolutely. Basketball, soccer, cross country. We did all these things, and we were. I'm like, man, we could have been so much better if we actually went to the gym. But, now I go to the gym. I like working out, lifting weights, playing pickleball, doing some of that for cardio. But, I only stay in decent shape. I love to eat. I only stay in decent shape because I have to, because I'm in this industry.
Well, good. I mean, we all have our motivations.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, whoever did your work on your website, like you and Jeff look like you guys could be out in the UFC next week. I mean,
we like bare knuckle. We like the UFC. We like all those sports.
So was that website stuff? Is that actual you, or did they do some work on it? Because you guys look like super.
You didn't see?
Oh yeah, it was very okay. Now I know it's real.
I
had pegged you for a yoga guy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Right? You look very limber.
I've done that about 2 or 3 times in my life.
Unintentionally?
Limber, huh? Limber.
Limber.
Okay.
You look like a limber guy. I bet you could touch your toes.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of UFC.
Yeah.
Who would win in a UFC fight? You?
Or Jeff?
Or Jake Paul?
Oh, yeah, Jake Paul all day. Don't
really?
worry about it. I'm old.
You're not.
I just turned 50, and Jake Paul's 25. So I'd have to give it to Jake Paul.
Well, I mean, you guys are kind of in similar industries, right?
Yeah.
The social media, and now you're in the UFC, and
yeah, we met those guys a couple years ago up in northern Utah it was actually his 24th birthday or 23rd birthday. But yeah, they're great guys. They're good dudes.
Okay.
It's actually right when Logan was launching Prime. They were doing a big advertisement and stuff for Prime.
Interesting, so, yeah. Okay, so
he would win.
You think he would win? Close bout.
Yeah,
what about between you and your brother?
Whoever's
the twin?
The most mad is going to win.
That's
I would have to say I would, but if he was sitting here, he'd probably say he would. So it's like who would win in basketball too, right?
yeah.
So
Super competitive.
super competitive. We play in pickleball yesterday, and it was pretty good. Good
In
competition.
pickleball?
Yeah, good competition.
Everyone can play pickleball. It doesn't.
Yeah, but we get really competitive. We get really competitive. So.
All right. Well, those are the three questions I had for you.
Good.
Well done.
Okay, thanks.
I guess to stay on the shipping theme, because we're a shipping logistics technology company.
Yeah.
Would you rather ship your pants or ship your bed?
This is the Kmart ad, right? I'd rather ship my pants.
Yes.
I don't want to lie in it.
That's the first time I've ever heard that answer. Typically in the industry, we start saying, well, yeah, I'd rather ship my pants because shipping a bed is going to be ridiculously expensive.
Yeah,
shipping your pants, you can fold them up, small package, throw it in the mail.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move into kind of the best things that you've done or the worst things that you've done in your business life. I want you to share all of your secrets to where you've arrived at with Bucked Up today. So let's just I know you didn't spend a lot of time in college, but are there any books that you've read, people that you've listened to, philosophies that you follow that have led you into this direction?
I'm not a big reader. I do listen to audiobooks quite a bit. I just got done listening to an audiobook, Die with Zero. So I think I'm heading in that direction. But there's a few things that, some of the worst things and maybe some of the best things that's happened to us. Believe it or not, we were actually trying to launch energy drinks a lot sooner than 2020. We actually launched some energy drinks for Fit Expo in April of 2019. And a guy took one of our one of our energy drinks and said, it tasted great at first, but on the end, it tasted really bitter. I've always been happy with Bucked Up products, but I'm not sure I can get behind this one. And at that point, we brought 200,000 cans back to the warehouse and we destroyed them all.
Wow.
I think he had one shot at it. I felt like we have one shot at energy drinks. So I wasn't comfortable with that. But so some of the worst things that could have happened, I was like, shoot, this is a big punch in the gut, a couple $100,000 in the gut to take, but we got to do it and trust the instinct, trust your gut and say, hey, this is something that I feel like we need to do. And sometimes even those hard decisions work out later on, and we figured it out, and the product tastes really great.
Yeah.
So, there's some things like that, I at the time I thought it was the worst thing that could happen, and it actually ended up being the best thing.
Yeah.
So
you made the hard decision.
Yep.
Took a lot of product off the shelf.
Yep.
To come out with the right thing. How important is that to come out, especially in your industry, to come out with the right thing? It's really hard to overcome
really
negative. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really tough. And, thank goodness we've been blessed. We go to ingredient shows, so we find out what ingredients do really well. We use the clinical proven ingredient at their clinical dose. So in theory, it should work, right? And we've been lucky that the stuff that we've come out with has worked. And it also tastes great at the same time. So we're known for our taste. So, I remember when we first came out with pre-workouts, even going around tasting all the pre-workouts, I'm like, man, you almost have to gag this thing down. Like this tastes crazy.
Yeah.
And we came out with a really, really great tasting product that tasted really well. We didn't add a lot of stuff to it to make it taste, a lot of vitamins, a lot of amino, we just decided, hey, let's put what really works in there for a really good workout. And it happened to be 9 ingredients, and we made it taste really, really well. So really great.
Gotcha. Okay. Are you like a routine guy, or are you I get up around the same time every morning and whatever happens during the day, I'm responding?
I like to get into a routine, and the bigger and more complex our business gets, the more I like that routine to be even further out. So calendaring out and and having things in place weeks in advance has been really, really helpful and crucial in our business. Not just in our business, but personal as well. Like we've already got all of our vacations planned out for the year, and things like that. So, it's really helpful to be in, where it's a routine.
Have that schedule.
And you have a schedule.
Yeah. You guys, you and your brother are both known as workaholics. Like
we
like
work all the time.
You like to work. You enjoy work.
I do. I enjoy it. So, people are like, hey, are you going to sell Bucked Up? And I'm like, what else am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? So sure, but I'd probably go work somewhere else pretty dang quick. My wife says I'd go stir crazy in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So
with all of that work, how important is it to decompress, take your trip to Alaska for a couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's why we schedule those vacations, because we kind of schedule them every quarter so that, hey, you could get a chance to just unwind for a little bit. Even though we still have, when you have internet access, you still have accessibility, but still, it's really crucial to rest. It's kind of like working out. You got to give your body a chance to recover and recover from that, and you'll grow even further.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Besides the Know Your Ship podcast, what is your other favorite podcast?
We were just on, do you know Dan, the laptop man that's local? We actually were on his podcast.
Who doesn't know Dan, the laptop man?
His was actually pretty good. He's good, entertaining, asked some good questions. So it was pretty good. But I like the name of your podcast.
Thank you.
I like it. Yeah. Who came up with it?
This guy.
That you, yeah, right?
I was inspired. I was drinking in LFG, and all of a sudden,
oh yeah,
it
instant
just
came right to you, right?
Came to me.
See? Product works.
Yeah, just like that. Okay, before I let you go, and by the way, we could not appreciate more all of the insight and the backstory and everything else that you provided. It's been fascinating. I know people will love it. We love it, and we look forward to continuing building this relationship with you guys. What is the one thing that you would like to talk about on a podcast that no one ever asks you about?
I haven't actually thought of that. But I do like asking the people who are interviewing me questions as well.
You do?
Yeah.
So you like to give...
I like to find out, like, with eHub,
bit.
how did you start it? Like, why did you name this podcast what you did? But I think we figured that out.
Right.
We're currently working with you right now to help us with cost savings. Our company is so large now, just a little bit of cost savings goes a long ways. If you could save us $1 or $2 on shipping each thing, if we're shipping thousands and thousands of packages, you could save us millions of dollars a year. So
absolutely.
How did you start eHub?
Well, that's an interesting story. And if we had another
hour, you could go through it.
At least another hour, I would tell you this whole story. But it is kind of interesting because we started with our founder, Wade Slater, who had an opportunity to get involved with a reseller contract with the United States Postal Service.
Yeah.
And so we went out a little bit like you, maybe not as hardworking as you. I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up on the mean streets of Culver City, California. But we just went out and started selling shipping rates. And eventually we discovered, I hope we might have to blurt this part out.
Okay.
But the USPS isn't a really strong technology partner.
Right.
And
surprise.
Yeah. And so we discovered as we went through this process that if we wanted, we could do really well selling rates and making a margin on the rates. But when you talk about leverage and control, USPS had all the control and all the leverage.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
our opportunity was more on the technology side and building a platform that people could utilize, save on shipping, but also all of these other products associated with being in a warehouse or shipping products.
Yeah.
And so that's what we started doing. We tried to meet a need that we saw in the market.
And how many would you say that you ship today? Like, how many clients are you working with, and how many shipments are you doing?
Hundreds of clients. Well, hundreds of clients, but it's interesting because some of our clients also have clients. So you can probably say thousands of clients and tens of millions of shipments go through our platform.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So why did you start a podcast?
We're looking for a big bump.
Are you? With Bucked Up?
With Bucked Up.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm ready. If you could save us some money, we're in.
We're really counting on you.
Okay.
Yes. And what was your follow-up?
My question is, why did you start a podcast, and what's the purpose of the podcast?
So the purpose of the podcast is a couple of things. We think there's a need in the market to hear good stories of founders and people who have been in the business. And obviously there's a promotional portion of it for eHub. And I mean, if we associate ourselves, eHub, with really good people, really successful people, I mean, the rising tide.
Yes,
you know what
exactly.
I mean?
As the ocean rises, so do all the ships, right?
Oh, that's exactly right. So you know, when you talk about hiring good people, it's a lot like that. When you start, things that you don't think about when you're going to do a podcast. You know, who's gonna host the podcast? Well, that was an obvious choice. That was an easy one. So we landed there pretty quickly,
pretty fast.
But then you think, well, how important are the guests? Because you have to have people who are going to be interesting and share insight, and people are going to resonate with. And so that's a big part of it, is finding the right people.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
It's our pleasure. Awesome. It's a great brand. Love the product.
Thanks.
Best of luck in the future, and we can't wait to see where Bucked Up goes.
Where Bucked Up goes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you for listening to the Know Your Ship podcast presented by eHub. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.